So we have Vidhi who will talk about IFRS for CA final students. Yeah, Vidhi.
Hello friends, I'm Vidhi Chheda. By profession and by passion, I'm a mentor. I teach CA students. Thank you, sir, for giving me such a wonderful opportunity where I am a part of this big event. And congratulations to all of you that you are a part of this event. Now, when we talk about IFRS, we know one thing that it speaks about the framework, accounting framework. Over the years, there have been a lot of changes when we talk about accounting standards or the framework or the reporting standards. But now with convergence with IFRS, we have IND AS, which is going to be a very integral part of our reporting. So it's very important for us to know that what are the career opportunities when we get into IFRS. IFRS reporting, it's an excellent career option. The reasons are it's the conflict. There is a lack of professionals which have expertise into this stream where reporting is concerned. Along with that, the voluntary phase, along with that, the mandatory phase is into picture, and all the have to have knowledge about the IFRS and theirs. We know that liberalization, globalization, and privatization, the key factor in this globalization has produced a new level of interdependence, and no more we are confined to political boundaries. A computer which is ordered in Brazil is designed in California and assembled in several countries. So we can understand that the interdependence of the countries has grown, and this has led to increase the need of the reporting framework, which gives clarity, reliability, and transparency of accounting. The disintegration of international boundaries has necessitated the establishment of common business practices, which makes it globally understandable, verifiable, and accessible. And where are we moving? We are moving towards a bigger perspective where our approach is global versus the country approach, fair value versus historical cost, reporting versus accounting, substance over form, group versus standalone, principles over rules, balance sheet over profit and loss, entity over company, and controlled entity over subsidiaries. So you can see that the perspective, the perception, the interpretation has grown to a wider view. Now, what is the scope of IFRS reporting in India? Well, in India, companies, whether they are into voluntary phase or mandatory phase 1, they are adopting and recruiting candidates with experience and knowledge in IFRS. So apart from having accounting and financial degrees, IFRS would give you an edge over everything. IFRS opportunities for various professionals. So professionals who are pursuing any degrees or have already completed one, whether chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost accountants, MBAs in finance and accounting, CFAs, CFPs, and many more. So why should they choose IFRS? Now this certification will bring you at par with global finance professionals. So the opportunities will not be confined to India but abroad. Along with that, introduction of IFRS has created a lot of employment opportunities. So companies that have begun implementing its first phase, they have to hire the professionals having IFRS knowledge for making their operations, the transition phase, smooth. Advisory companies that offer advisory services to accounting and finance firm need to hire IFRS professionals as consultants. Similarly, audit firms also require the same to offer excellent IFRS implementation to their client companies. So this is another opportunity for the aspirants. Also, it is high in demand when we talk about banking and insurance sector. And anyone who is skilled and having sufficient experience, and that person can begin with their own private consultancy and enhance their income potential. And people like me who are passionate about teaching, they can get an edge over finance education industry, because the institutes offering such curriculum need to upgrade their model with IFRS. So they need experts to teach their students. What is the scope of growth for IFRS professionals? So those who are just planning their career or beginning to take off their career, they have four major reasons to think over. First of all, high IFRS reporting professionals are in demand. Reason: so far we have the first phase of implementation, and there are 300 companies approximately who require to hire such professionals. But subsequently, when second and third phase and subsequent phases will be implemented, every mid-level, small-level companies will also be roped in. So you can understand the opportunity. So far, we have MBAs, CWAs, CFAs, CAs having accounting knowledge. But now, along with that, if you are IFRS expert, your career will be elevated to a different level, because it is highly growing in demand over the world. Apart from India, 100 more countries have received permission to implement IFRS standards. So if you are IFRS qualified, you are eligible to work and apply this knowledge over 100 plus countries. Now, since we know that IFRS is just not any accounting standard, it is quite complex and difficult for interpretation and application. Hence, if you are an expert, you will be in demand everywhere. So thank you, friends. Thank you all. And again, congratulations for being part of this event. Thank you so much.
Till the time we get Smita back online, I'll switch over to Reema. Hi, I have two questions for Reema. How does study of IFRS help in understanding IND AS better? And how does IFRS help in what role does it play in corporate governance? Reema.
All right. For the two questions, let me take it up one by one. But before that, I am Reema Jain, Company Secretary in practice, author in Books of Companies on Books of Companies Act 2013, independent director with a few public limited companies, and I understand how difficult it would be when the transition phase comes, because audit committee would be the first to be most effective in any such companies where it is applicable. Beginning with this, first, how does study of IFRS help in understanding the IND AS? May it be any kind of a regulation or law, when you're coming back to a point of convergence, the very first thing that comes to us is that we need to understand what is the basis. The basis here would be, say, the fundamental principles of recognition, measurement, presentation, and disclosure requirements of transactions and events in case of any such financial statements. The individual companies and the group consolidated financial statements all shall be equally impacted. So once we understand that how these particular bases have been derived on a global note, only after that the convergence would be important and easily understandable. Plus, providing the fact that it opens up a lot of more avenues and opportunities for any kind of a professional, may it be a company secretary for that reason, may it be a cost accountant, may it be a chartered accountant as well. Then once we understand what the IFRS really aims at, how the IFRS is really implemented, then not just we understand how the IND AS functions, because there are certain carve-outs which sir has already explained briefly right in the starting, these six major carve-outs. So it will be easier for us to understand and make a differentiation of our financial statements provided on an Indian scenario basis as well as on the global scenario basis. Reason being, there are entities here which even have subsidiaries or maybe holding companies outside India. So in that case, to understand the basic impact of those on the current or the Indian entity, having an understanding of IFRS, implementing that, and then deriving the Indian accounting standard or the IND AS and then implementing it here would be easier as well as even more interesting for us. So the learning aspect, the employment aspect, the consulting aspect, everywhere IFRS and IND AS currently is the hot buzz. Coming to the next question as shared by Poorna, the interrelationship between IND AS and corporate governance. See, all professionals may be a company secretary, cost accountant, a chartered accountant. They are an inherent part of the corporate governance framework of any company. Where a chartered accountant is preparing the base of financial statements, the company secretary is saying what laws and framework govern it, so where extra disclosures we require, and a cost accountant in case of such companies where there is a mandation with respect to cost audit would be auditing such financial statements and looking after the implementation of the cost accounting standards as well on the same financial statements prepared on the IND AS criteria. Another set of, I would say there are common pillars for IND AS and corporate governance as such, which would include the purposive and meaningful aspect, stakeholder management, true and fair view, transparency, appropriate and applicable disclosures, global acceptability of both, and requirement of both as well. Then for business sustainability, again, we require both at the current juncture. Then there is a fair value concept for the financial statements and the IND AS, and a fair approach towards the stakeholders, which is aimed at in the corporate governance structure, which is actually a mandation today and the need of the hour. Then there is value creation. Then there is a principle-based approach for both, and an accountability which is created at either ends when you are adopting IND AS and implementing it in your financial statements, as well as when you're talking about a company which is well governed, well structured, well handled, well directed, controlled, managed, even in the end, well devised or created. Maybe the mutual fund sector, the banking sector, the manufacturing sector, as already discussed earlier in this webinar. All major players and entities are corporates, companies, and primarily falling into the IND AS implementation roadmap net. There is also cost to responsibility on such entities and those in their finance as well as secretarial as well as their costing departments to please work towards a transparent and pro-stakeholder approach towards fair and value-enhancing set of financial statements. The audit committee, the internal auditors, statutory auditors, and even the company secretary practitioners, those certifying the MGT 7 and MGT 8 for such compliances, have the responsibility cast on themselves for absolute and proper recognition, measurement, presentation, and disclosure requirements of these financial statements. The governance, the guiding structure, guiding principles, they do have legal implications as well, which follow. So any of the professional, where I say a cost accountant to a company secretary to a chartered accountant, for any false certification, there are things or there are legal implications that shall be hindering us. So for us, primarily the knowledge of IND AS or IFRS or convergence to this is of equal importance. It's not that one professional would require and the other would not. Because if you're working on the same set of financial statements, or if you're certifying same set of financial statements, or you are towards the implementation of statutes which somewhere put forward the ideology of usage or incorporation or implementation of IND AS for the same set of financial statements of the entity, an equal responsibility is cast over all of us. Then there are challenges which do exist, yes. The reinvention and reinforcement of role of auditors, the audit committee is required for a meaningful and honest implementation of IND AS. Then fair value involves subjectivity and judgment, leaving broad scope to the management, which are an inherent part of the corporate governance structure or framework or any entity. Their discretion, yes, would matter a lot. Then treatment of financial instruments is another area and of concern for all stakeholders, and especially since the financial meltdown and recession in the past. The interrelationship thus between IND AS and corporate governance, with special emphasis on logical application of fair value concept and suitable nomenclature for the same, is inherent and important. The requirements of standards vis-a-vis increased responsibilities of the components of corporate governance. Then certain benefits, I would say, should also follow. That is better access for Indian companies to the global capital, facilitating inbound investments for a country like India and increase in that as well. Better corporate governance framework, lowering the cost of capital for progressive companies, not just cost of capital, but at certain cases where you are importing or exporting products, the cost of the products would also get impacted, because somewhere or the other the duties may differ from different nations. And of course, I would here mention the treaties or agreements signed between different countries, and there are cost accountant shall have to have that extra edge of understanding and finalizing that, come on, what kind of a costing should we finally come out, how do we exactly price it out. Then it will change the way businesses are conducted, and designed to the common pillars, and how they are aligned to the common pillars or foundations of IND AS and corporate governance. Then again, someone had mentioned here in the webinar itself that something like a corporate governance audit should soon follow, though it is right now mandatory only for the listed companies under SEBI's listing agreement. So CG audit again would follow, or should soon come, probably in the next 1.5 years maximum. Then Sarbox audit, which is already applicable for entities listed in the US and UK. So they're already here for certain companies as well. So since they're already on the path of IFRS, Indian companies converging, or the Indian sister concerns converging, the associate or JV companies holding subsidy converging to IND AS would be an added benefit to those companies. And thus, before I end, I would simply like to quote what my fellow speaker Gaurav Samota had said some time back, the international faster road to success. And as Bhave sir keeps saying, this is the opportunity. Converge. May you be any professional, you will require it. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for giving us this opportunity and for putting forward this platform of IND AS and IFRS for all. Thank you.